what, so this is kind of like where I've been, and this is kind of like where I'm going, or where I've been since I've gotten here. Tradition is like a huge part of my work. I'm not part of any direct lineage. Like I haven't apprenticed with, like, done formal apprenticeships, but I see myself as like a family, as part of a family of makers. Like one lineage in particular was the leech hominid lineage. There was like a big craft movement that happened in the 20s that influenced Japanese ceramics and British ceramics, and I thought about theories that I could maybe apply to my work, and like I think about George Kubler and his like Shape of Time book, and like since tradition, looking at pots is so important to me, like that's like an important like reading, like that seems pertinent to my work. Like I have this form right here that was inspired by these forms made by a guy named Michael Simon. So you can kind of see the like similarities there, but obviously I wanted to like push the figurative qualities of these, and I wanted to play around with like contemporary techniques such as like this watercolor. You can kind of see a similarity between this like watercolor and this like ash glaze. Like I talked about leech and hamada. I actually figured out that this like recipe was a leech recipe the other day. I thought it was attributed to someone else with the recipe for the glaze, but so I felt like playing around with these, it's kind of like I was taking tradition and trying to like push outward to try to excite myself, honor these forms that I love, and like have a reverence for, and like keep things exciting. For me in studio, I was like, this was first year work, so these are, I was like trying things out, trying to like get weird with everything. Trying different techniques, like I was making myself hand build instead of row forms. Since pottery is still like really important to me, I want to continue like making functional objects. I mean, I view this as functional, but maybe on the end of the scale that's like more vessel, or more of like an art form, art object. So I really want to like merge, like kind of like walk that fine line of function and like form and function. And the forms I'm making right now are like, I feel like they're starting to merge that line instead of like two distinct. You have your synthesis, and antithesis, and then thesis, or however that goes. But I feel like what I'm doing now is kind of like a merger of these two things. I really can't underscore like the importance of like tradition in my work, and just like all the makers that have come before me. They are like a dead star. They're like stars, and their light is like coming to me. Like I could see that, and I don't know. I have so much like love for like potters like Michael Simon. Got a quote, and it's like it goes. It goes. Tradition is tending the flame, not worshiping the ashes. So that's kind of, it's by Gustav Mahler, I think. But I'm real nervous, you guys. I'm sorry.
Do you want to jump into questions?
Yeah, we can.
Like you're at like 10 minutes, I think. I can't
Okay.
read. So you can keep going, or if you want to jump into questions and see,
Yeah.
it's up to you.
I mean, one type of theory I was thinking about when I made this was like the body without organs. It was something that I kind of like felt like grafted onto the piece. It wasn't like, you know, I kind of had to do it for an art theories class, but I thought it was like a helpful lens in looking at this. You know, it's like you have tradition, which is like your like traditional practice of your like convention, and then you have these like lines of flight, which are ways of like getting out of that, and so like lines of flight for me and that were like these contemporary techniques, the watercolor, the colored porcelain. I screen printed that, you know, the chrysalis that's in the inside. Trying different techniques and pushing figurative elements. These were all ways of kind of like, these are all my lines of flight out of like this tradition. So it's like, tradition can be great, but I think it's, you know, it's that tending to the fire and not worshiping the ashes that like you have to do, or you'll just like go crazy and not make anything worthwhile. So that's the theory I was thinking about. The chrysalis kind of mirroring that. Body without organs, I think it's about being in a state of becoming. So, yeah, I don't know. I wanted to, yeah, I'll open it up to questions. So.
Okay.
Hunter, maybe for people who are not familiar with Kugler's shape of time, can you give like a very brief, simple like recount of what you understand by it,
Sure.
how it comes into play for this work?
Sure. I've definitely slept since then, but I'll do my best. Kugler talked about prime objects, which were like wholly original objects that were made. And in the shape of time, he talks about like stars and how some of the stars kind of like an idea or an art, a work of art or an artist's work. You feel free to, I'm sure I'll butcher this, but and also like another thing I thought about, like I was going to mention, is like he talks about series of works of art, and then how how they're like a problem, and that once that problem's kind of been worked over enough, that closes, and then I think and then it becomes another thing.
I'm just encouraging you. Keep going.
Yes, keep going.
So I mean, I look at these as that. I look at these like works as like a series, and that like I'm like opening them back up because I have like a respect for them, because I'm like I'll get obsessed like looking through these like images and just having like a deep appreciation for them. I'll open these series back up, and it's I don't know. It's like for me a helpful starting point for my work. It's like you jump off from there into something else. I feel like this person is like family. You know, it's like one time I was talking to like an instructor. I was like, I was mentioning like something I had made. I was like, yeah, it's like close to home, and so. But I don't know if that
I have a really easy question. Can I ask an easy question?
Not a theory question.
Can you talk about your use of color?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I use pink in these, like, which I feel like, I think Joe even mentioned, like, oh, they're like female or they're like gendered, and I definitely see that, and I think it's maybe the shade of pink that I was using. But I was kind of trying to invoke like the sense of flesh. Like sketching is a really big part of my work, and so this is kind of like how I sketched it. Like I do like colored sketches. And, I mean, it's like outfits that I wear that kind of inspire. I don't really wear pink, but like that gets in there. Like that's like an inspiration. Like colors that I'm drawn to, shapes that I'm drawn
So
to.
is the green related to your hat?
No, I think I was trying to find a color that went well with the pink. Like the pink was the perfect anyway. And you want to do like colored porcelain that invokes maybe this idea of flesh.
So do you see these as autobiographical or as connected to you and your experience?
I do. I mean, since there's I don't know. I plan a lot of a lot of our making gets planned around the EOS, so I was like thinking about incorporating like decals on there that like further reference this idea of
It's for making.
of like insects. And so that's
Insects?
yeah.
So
like,
going back to your earlier work.
yeah, kind of, and so it's autobiographical in that way. I felt like this was kind of like, I don't know if y'all know like about Hanuman, like the Hindu god. So like Hanuman like rips open his heart and reveals Ram, like God, is it within his. And so I felt like in a way this was like a similar thing of like me ripping open my heart and revealing this symbol of like flux and becoming. So, and this headdress is kind of like elevating like this form. I felt like because I've seen in different cultures, like similar to Kubler, like there's shapes, there's recurring shapes and designs through time. So I think like this, I've seen this shape in like Mayan culture, like there's like a sun god, I forget his name, but then I'll see that shape in like Roman headdresses, and so it's like a status. That was one way that I was looking at it. It's like I'm kind of elevating these things, making them figurative, like personalizing them. I'm just talking to you. I don't know.
Ron had another question.
Yeah, I mean, I can a lot easier. I have a lot easier of a time saying where I want that. You know, like in a domestic setting on somebody's like mantle. You know, I think it's a little harder for me to be like, that needs to go in somebody's living room, just because it's like, no, it's hard for me to pick out or imagine like where it lives. But since
But
a big
you mentioned you thought of this as a functional piece. So is it because of its size? If this thing was 6 feet tall and it was identical, but 6 feet tall, would it still be functional in the same way?
No.
And how is it functional? If you're thinking of it as functional.
Yeah, I mean, it's functional, but there's a hole in the top.
That it can hold things? That it is in fact a vessel?
Yeah.
No.
There is a hole at the top.
But I don't know.
That's around a solve problems, Mark?
Just a hole in.
Yeah.
I don't know how functional these are, and you know, after talking with like some like potter friends, it's like, dude, don't care if the picture's too heavy. It's gonna sit on somebody's. We're kind of at this point in time where it's like we don't really even use like it's kind of hard to admit a little bit, but it's like I use pots all the time, but
But
a lot of
the thing you said earlier about wanting to sort of blur the functional, non-functional boundary, right? That's like interesting. But it's kind of like you want to own that, not just like say it.
yeah.
Yeah, and you got to really think about those lines that you're trying to cross and think about like art versus craft or function versus non-functional and like, like exactly why you're doing it, because your relationship and like, yes, craft has been held at a different standard. Maybe it's relating back to your like bringing it back to a different hierarchy, because like you talk about hierarchy in your work a lot. And so really just think about like your position in between those two lines that you're in a way you're drawing by talking about it, and you want to talk about it, because I think that especially in ceramics, that line has been like awkward, I guess. I don't know. Like I think it's been a struggle for them. Yes, point of contention. Beautiful words, Cass. Yeah. Do you have a response? I know I didn't ask a question.
I think about it. Like I think about, like, what if I just stop making pots like functional objects? And I'm like, well, I love the idea that maybe it's I love the idea that you can like make a living doing it. Like, what am I doing if I'm just like making? How am I gonna support myself? I like that. I don't know, that just feels like, what am I doing if I can't?
Yeah.
There's a financial aspect, which sounds like gross, but it's like, I don't know, it feels weird being like in academia and being like told to like not make functional objects. It's like, you want me to starve even more? Because this is like, I'm already gonna be really like poured off.
Well, do you think it's about your definition and relationship to ceramics? Because ceramics are often seen as functional objects. Do you think it's like you're afraid to break that definition? And fear that you're going to fall into sculpture? Is that somewhere? Is that a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as makers, we all have identity wrapped up in what we do. But I don't know. I'm not.
Can I offer an opinion to that?
Yeah.
I feel like this is a skill that you're never gonna lose, right? So like I feel that is a point of contention in your work, the functional, non-functional thing. So I think that's a good thing to explore. You'll always be able to make a coffee cup and a teapot. Those are skills that you won't ever lose.
Yeah.
I feel like you're currently in a setting to explore this more, and it's definitely a point of contention. How can you blur those lines? Can you blur those lines? If you can, what's the most successful way to do so? So I think moving forward in your work, it's super important to think about that aspect and what it means to you. Maybe write about it.
I think it's a privilege to come here and spend time like in your MFA and explain your artwork. You know, I definitely understand like we're all stuck in this capitalism fall state. I understand like the not like having to sell your work and things like that. Can you like? Do you feel like you'd be able to like separate those for a little while? Maybe like spend some time on your art practice and not your commercial practice? Or is that too, like it's not inseparable to you?
I just think like blending the two would be more interesting. Like I want to make pots, and I want to make pots that aren't just pots, that they have some sort of they carry meaning. Beyond form and function, they have a content to them. So I'm really feeling like now it's like taking this and putting it into that. That's what I'm doing at the moment.
What does changing the function sound like to you? Like, what does that look like? If you had to change the function from a cup to being a cup you drink out of to being something else, like a cup you use for, like, what does changing the function look like for you?
I don't really know if I get you.
So it's not a vase, it's pennies, like changing the function. It's not a vase, it's a piggy bank.
Or like holy object or something, like it's not something that necessarily has a function that is codifiable, like a function that I don't know, I can't think of a word.
Function?
Spiritual function? Like it doesn't have to do something, but it is in its existence, it is something.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I see that in your work, and also after like several conversations with you, I also just see a love for both of these things. Like you speak so highly of your love of the formal elements of like in the tradition of pottery making, and like I see you loving that and taking that and refining that. And so like while Cass was talking about how that's never something that you'll lose, like you'll always know how to do that. There's also like a genuine care that you've expressed consistently throughout our time as grad students all together, right? For your love for that. Like you love to nurture these things, and it's not that you have to even see them as separate, because I don't think that you do. I think that you genuinely love to nurture both of these directions, and I hope the like from this conversation, you just are encouraged to continue to do so, because like I see that in your work. I see them as like objects that could function, you know. I don't think you specify like exactly how all the time, but like I see you nurturing both of these crafts, and just wanted to throw the word of encouragement out there too as well. Like it's been beautiful to learn alongside your love for these things.
Isn't the whole like body without organs thing, like you are a subject, like we know this is you, right?
No.
And like, but it's the opposite. It's like the reaction to that. It's like why do I have to be one thing? We kind of do this for a little bit and then go back and like honestly.
Have
like,
you only read Body Without Organs, or have you read maybe like 1,000 Plateaus?
I feel like I've read other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Hunter, do you embrace the label of being a rebel, or do you not see that? And I don't mean that like in a disparaging way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like there's values that are like, tied to making functional objects that I think I don't want to like part with, where it just seemed kind of just privileged to make something like that. I'm just like no, like
Yeah.
something else. When I need it, I think I do it. This one, messing with it, like that's white, that's pink, they're like flip flopped, you know. And I feel like I need to like push those boundaries and make things weird. I do that, but that's not always the case.
I think there'll always be a touch of function in all of your work. I'm just gonna put that out there, because it is so important.
I think you're a really analytical person, so I agree. I think that that's the function of the clay and ceramics is definitely like a core.
I wonder if it's useful to like unpack function a little bit. Like I'm looking at that cup, and I'm thinking about how a cup and a vase are different. Like they both hold liquids, but one of them someone puts their mouth on it, like and holds it with their hand. Like I wonder if it's worth sort of honoring, I guess, the spectrum of what function means and what its implications are for the user. I find this to be a really exciting conversation. And Hunter, I wanted to say, I know you and I have had some conversations about the sort of figurative turn in your work and how you think about bodies and the pretty orderly humanoid logic that the figure right in front of me has. And I just wanted to say that I remember when I first saw this and we were talking in your EOS review, I was seeing it totally as like a uvula kind of form, you know, like it seemed like it was part of it. But then you reminded me a few minutes ago when you identified it as a chrysalis, and it made me think about the rest of the form that's holding that chrysalis as not so much a figure or a body, but as a habitat in which the chrysalis is being formed. I don't know what you can do with this. I think that's a really exciting way to view this, and it breaks me out a little bit from, again, what head, shoulders, legs, like the figure, it gives me an opportunity to see the piece not only as a standing figure, but as an environment in which this thing is being like formed. Can you talk a little bit more about that chrysalis and how you see its relation to the rest of the structure that you created?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like since I kind of work intuitively, like that seemed like an interesting place to like mess with this form that I had like been inspired by. And so since I kind of work intuitively that way, I feel like I'm still understanding this. And like this is from like a series of forms like this that are figurative. But like recently I've been looking at it like that's something that we all have within us, this like soul or spirit, and like how often we like look outside of us for those things that are going to fulfill ourselves. last semester I was looking at like that whole other lens, the body of that organs, or so I'm still figuring it out, but that is along the lines of what I was thinking. Like, is this habitat? Is this I'm still working on it.
I think it's exciting. I think the spiritual framework that you're applying here, as well as the kind of the scientific biological piece. I think there's something exciting there.
Okay, well, thank you guys all for coming, and thank you. Thank you, Hunter.